The morning was cold and gray, the kind that made even the birds hide away in silence. Eleanor wrapped her faded wool coat tighter around her thin frame as she shuffled along the shoulder of Highway 14. The wind bit through her scarf, tugging at the edges of her hat, but she didn't complain. She was used to the chill, used to the quiet too. For the last 10 years, since her husband's passing, her life had been little more than quiet mornings and lonely evenings in a weathered cottage at the edge of town. In her purse, folded neatly beside a worn photograph of her late husband, lay a single $10 bill, the last of her money until the next pension check arrived. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, and maybe some soup. That would get her through the week, she told herself, as she approached the small gas station she often passed on her morning walks. But something made her stop. Just ahead, by the edge of the road, a motorcycle was parked, a heavy, black Harley with chrome shining dully under the cloudy sky. A man crouched beside it, cursing softly under his breath. His jacket was torn, his hands were stained with grease, and his face looked rough, marked by exhaustion and frustration. Eleanor hesitated. She had always been cautious around bikers. People said they were wild, dangerous, not to be trusted. But when the man lifted his head, she didn't see danger. She saw weariness. He looked like someone who'd been fighting battles she couldn't imagine. "You all right there, son?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "Ran out of gas, ma'am. My wallet's back at the diner a few miles out. Guess I'll be pushing this beast for a while." He gave a strained laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. Eleanor looked toward the gas station just a few steps away, then back at him. That $10 bill weighed heavy in her thoughts. She could almost hear her husband's voice saying, "Ellie, never let someone stand in the rain if you've got an umbrella." Without another word, she reached into her purse and pulled out the bill. Her hands trembled slightly, from the cold, or maybe from knowing it was all she had. "Here," she said, offering it to him. "Get yourself some gas. Don't worry about paying me back." The man blinked, startled. "Ma'am, I can't take your money. You don't even know me." "I don't need to," she replied softly. "Just promise me you'll help someone else when you get the chance." That's how the world keeps turning. He hesitated, then took the bill with a slow nod. "Thank you," he said quietly, almost ashamed. Eleanor smiled faintly. "Be safe, dear." As she walked away, the drizzle began to fall. Behind her, the biker filled his tank and watched her fading figure disappear into the mist. He didn't even know her name, but he knew one thing for certain. He would never forget her. The following morning dawned bright and cold, the kind of morning when the sun feels distant, more a light than a warmth. Eleanor stood in her small kitchen, stirring a thin bowl of oatmeal and humming softly to herself. The house creaked around her, old and tired like its owner. She didn't have much left in the pantry, but she was content. She'd done something kind the day before, and that thought had carried her through the lonely night. She didn't know that somewhere miles away, a man named Jake Hammer Dalton was gathering his brothers, 50 leather-clad bikers from all across the county, telling them about an old woman who had given her last $10 to a stranger. By mid-morning, the peace of Eleanor's quiet street was shattered by the low, distant rumble of engines. At first, she thought it was thunder. Then it grew louder, heavier, until the sound filled the air like a storm of metal and wind. Curtains fluttered in neighboring windows as heads peeked out, curious and alarmed. Eleanor stepped onto her porch, clutching her worn cardigan. Her heart skipped as she saw the first motorcycle turn onto her street, then another, and another. Within moments, 50 gleaming machines lined the road, their chrome flashing under the sun. The ground vibrated beneath her slippers. At the front of the pack was Jake, his long brown hair tucked beneath his helmet. He parked his Harley in front of her gate, killed the engine, and took off his helmet, revealing a broad, genuine smile. "Mornin', ma'am," he called out. "You remember me?" Eleanor tilted her head, squinting. Then recognition softened her face. "You're the young man from the gas station. The one who ran out of fuel." He nodded. "That's me. Name's Jake. I came to say thank you, and not just from me." The other bikers began unloading boxes from their saddlebags and trailers. Groceries, warm blankets, canned food, even new furniture. 2 riders carried a brand new refrigerator up the walkway, while another set down bags of pet food, even though Eleanor didn't have a pet. She stood frozen, her lips trembling. "Oh, my, what is all this?" Jake walked up to her and handed her a white envelope. His voice softened. You gave me your last $10, ma'am. You didn't know who I was, but you still helped. When I told my brothers about you, they couldn't believe it. We all decided it was time somebody did something big for you." Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside was a check, and when she saw the number, her breath caught. $28,500. Her eyes filled with tears. "No, no, I can't take this," she whispered. "It's too much." Jake smiled gently. "Ma'am, we've wasted more than that on chrome and whiskey. You gave when you had nothing. You showed us what real giving looks like. This isn't charity, it's gratitude." The engines rumbled to life again as the bikers cheered, raising their fists to the sky. Eleanor covered her face, weeping and laughing all at once. In that moment, her little house, once quiet and lonely, became the loudest, warmest place in the world. News of Eleanor's story spread faster than wildfire in a summer wind. Within days, the local paper ran the headline, "Highway Angel, Elderly Woman's $10 Act Inspires 50 Bikers." Then national outlets picked it up. Reporters called her home, neighbors stopped by with flowers, and strangers from across the country sent letters thanking her for reminding them that kindness still existed in the world. But for Eleanor, the true miracle wasn't the attention, it was the people who entered her life. Every weekend, Jake and his biker club came to visit. They fixed her broken porch steps, repainted her picket fence, and patched the leaky roof that had dripped for years. They brought groceries, laughter, and stories of the open road. The rumble of motorcycles that had once frightened her now made her smile. She started calling them, "my boys." They called her, Mama Ellie. The quiet loneliness that had haunted her cottage vanished. Where there had once been silence, now there was the sound of engines, laughter, and the smell of barbecues on Sunday afternoons. The rough-looking bikers became her family, not out of pity, but out of love. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky with gold and purple, Jake sat beside Eleanor on her porch swing. The old boards creaked softly beneath them. He looked out at the empty road and said, "You know, when I ran out of gas that day, I thought it was just bad luck. But now I think maybe it was something bigger, maybe fate." Eleanor smiled, her thin hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "Fate, maybe, or just a little nudge from above to remind you that people still care." Jake nodded. "That $10 you gave me, it wasn't just money. It was hope. I hadn't seen that kind of kindness in a long time. It made me realize I'd been living angry for too long." Eleanor chuckled softly. "Sometimes, dear, it only takes one small spark to light a fire that warms a lot of hearts." They sat in silence for a while, watching the fireflies blink in the dusk. For Eleanor, those moments were more precious than gold. She didn't feel poor anymore. She didn't feel alone. She felt full, of love, laughter, and belonging. Months later, when Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep, the news reached every member of Jake's club. On the day of her funeral, the quiet town trembled under the roar of 50 motorcycles once more. The riders escorted her hearse through the streets, their engines echoing like thunder in reverence. At the cemetery, Jake placed her favorite daisies on her casket. His voice broke as he whispered, "Ride easy, Mama Ellie. You gave your last $10, and changed all of us forever." They engraved her tombstone with those same words. She gave her last $10, and taught 50 hearts how to love again. And from that day on, wherever the club rode, they carried a patch on their jackets, a small embroidered angel with a $10 bill in her hand. A reminder that sometimes, the smallest kindness can leave the loudest echo on the road of life.